We are here with Mike Matthews, and like I said, I'm going to put the handout in the chat, and you should have received it in the emails as well. There's a lot that he put in there. He's not going to obviously be able to cover everything, but he's going to come up, some wonderful tips on how to use the iPhone. I think this is going to be very valuable. So I am just going to turn this over to Mike and let him have the stage. So Mike, it's all yours.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having me again. And the handout, as Dan mentioned, is many, many pages long. I usually teach this class for about a 2-hour period. And even then, sometimes I don't get to everything. So I don't have any expectation that we're going to get to everything that's in here. We may hop around a little bit. We might go off on a tangent. Who knows, right? It's the month of May. It's time for some fun and games. So there's no slides to put up. It's all about just getting on the phone and doing some things. So I think what I'll do now is share my phone screen with you. And if you guys all have an iPhone in hand, then you can follow along at home, as they say. So let me just share my phone screen. And we'll be ready to go.
We are good.
Okay. So I'll move a couple things out of the way here. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the keyboard, which for many people is the bane of their existence when trying to use the iPhone. I don't know how many of you were paying attention when the iPhone was first introduced, but back in the day, back in the dark times, most smartphones had a hard plastic keyboard at the bottom part of the phone. And those little tiny keys were very hard to hit sometimes, but you knew that when you hit them correctly, you actually got what you were trying to hit. And the iPhone, of course, went in a different direction. It wasn't the first smartphone to use just nothing but a touch screen, but it was the first one that did it right. And it didn't take too long for everybody else to figure out that getting rid of those hard keyboards was a good idea. But getting rid of the hard keyboard is only a good idea if the soft keyboard, the one that pops up on the screen when you need it, is good. And the keyboard is good on the phone. If I can tell you to come away with anything after listening to this session about the keyboard, it's to trust the keyboard. It's predictive, it's auto-correcting, it's doing a lot of things behind the scenes to try to help improve your typing. And, our fat fingers, which sometimes get fatter depending on the weather outside or inside, you need all the help they can get when using this keyboard. So I'm just going to show you a few things that you might know or that you might not know by opening up the Notes app, just to have somewhere to type. So if you want to follow along with the Notes app, you can do that. I mentioned at the very beginning that the keyboard is predictive and auto-correcting. So if I try to type the word moon, M-O-O, and you're not going to be able to see this when I do it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to not tap the N key directly. I'm going to tap right about up here, that little gap between the H, the J, the B, and the N. And when I do that, I get an N. Because the keyboard has a dictionary built in, and it's watching what you type, and it's using this little bar above the top row of the keys to try to predict what you're going to type, the iPhone knows that there is no such word that begins with moob, moo, mooj, mook, or moom. So if I've typed the M, the O, and the O, and I just tap anywhere near that N, I'm going to get an N, right? That's the predictive nature of the keyboard. So what I try to advise people is typing on this very small keyboard, you'll have a much, much better experience if you just type. If you type like one letter at a time, like B, great, A, okay, N, yeah, A, N, O, A, I got banana. Good, thank God, right? You're not going to have fun typing on the keyboard if you try to type that way. It's actually much better to just kind of plow through the typing, realize you're going to probably make some mistakes, realize the iPhone's probably going to fix some of those mistakes, and then go back and fix the mistakes after a sentence or two. You'll have a much better experience with it. Let me show you some other things that you can do when you are using the keyboard that can help speed up your typing. So the iPhone has a very narrow screen compared to things like Macs and iPads. And so not all of the keys can fit on one screen, as you know. This keyboard here is showing me just the alphabet. If I want to get to numbers and some punctuation and stuff, I got to tap the 1, 2, 3 key. And there's even more symbols after that by tapping the symbol button above the ABC key. So if you're typing anything other than letters, you're flopping back and forth between various keyboards frequently. Here's one tip I can give you, which is when you're going to type a word that has a contraction in it, just type it without the apostrophe. D-O-N-T. Now the iPhone is highlighting this word up here in yellow, which is telling me something's going on here. The iPhone is saying, wait, this doesn't look quite right to me. In fact, if you look at these predictive words above the top row of the keyboard, you'll see on the left, there's the word as I've spelled it, just in quote marks. And here's the word with an apostrophe in it, the correct spelling of a word. If I want to replace the selected text up here, the misspelled word, with either of these choices, I can just tap it. Right? If I really want the word to be D-O-N-T without an apostrophe, I can just tap this item on the left and it will accept that as the word that I'm trying to type. Or I could tap this white highlighted choice in the middle, and whatever is in this white highlighted choice will replace the selected text, like that. But even better than that is this. If I type D-O-N-T, let me try a different word. Can't, C-A-N-T. You'll notice down below, the proper spelling of the word can't is right here in the middle, white background. If I simply press the space bar on the keyboard, this word with the white background will replace the selected text in the note, like that. So the space bar is the biggest key on the keyboard. It's the easiest one to hit, actually. So I'm saving myself a trip to the numeric keyboard to find the apostrophe key every time I type a contraction by just leaving the apostrophe out and pressing the space bar at the end of the word. W-O-U-L-D-N-T space, right? D-I-D-N-T space. That's a very helpful thing to do. Here's another one. When we all grew up with typewriters, and I know some of you know what a typewriter looks like. If I showed one to my kids, they wouldn't know what it was, but some of us know what typewriters are. We learned that when you reach the end of a sentence, you put 2 spaces in at the end of the sentence to differentiate the end of a sentence from a space between words, right? 1 space between words, 2 spaces at the end of a sentence. Typewriters, when we grew up, had keys that would put characters on the paper, and all those characters would line up together in columns, right? The I took up just as much space as the M did. And so that's why you had to put 2 spaces between sentences and only 1 space between words. Well, if you're typing on a computer using a font like this, which is proportionally spaced, right? The I in the word didn't takes up much less space than the D does. When you're typing on a regular computer keyboard, you don't want to put 2 spaces at the end of a sentence. You only want to put 1. Otherwise, you get too many gaps in between the words. It makes the sentences harder to read. So if I write a sentence like, the cat is asleep, if I need to go get a period, I've got to tap the 1, 2, 3 key, tap the period, press the space bar, and now I'm ready to start the next sentence. Instead, you can do something like this. The lion will lay down with the lamb. And instead of going and finding the period key, I can simply press the space bar twice. And that will insert a period and a space and turn on the Shift key to capitalize the next letter. This will also save you time, right? Spacebar is the biggest key on the keyboard. You're not flopping back and forth between the letters and the symbols. But the lamb won't, space, get much sleep, space, space, to put a period in. So this will save you lots of time flipping around on the keyboard if you learn that simple trick. 2 spaces at the end of a sentence will put in a period, a space, and capitalize the next letter. In addition, most of the time when you're using the phone, pretty much everything you need is kind of right in front of you most of the time. But I've got a friend named Andre who spells his name with an accent. And so if I send him something that doesn't have an accent over the E, something that looks like this, he's going to be very upset. So instead of typing an E and incurring the wrath that I will receive, I can touch and hold the E key, leave my finger on the screen, and I get an array of different accented characters for the E. So my finger is still touching the screen. I can just slide it up and slide it over and pick the E that I want, and then lift my finger off the screen to get the accented character. So these alternate glyphs are present if you touch and hold the letters you would think you would touch and hold. Things like vowels, like U, or I, or A, and some consonants like N or C. Just slide your finger up to pick the letter you want. Okay. It's also, this alternate glyph thing is present, say, behind the $ key on the keyboard. If you touch and hold this one, you'll get different currency symbols. If you touch and hold the question mark key, you'll get the upside down question mark that is used to precede sentences in Spanish, for example. Same with the exclamation point. And if you touch and hold the 0 key, you'll get a degree symbol that you can pick. Okay. So lots of alternate glyphs here. Not every key has something behind it. Like if I touch and hold the 4 key, that's all I'm going to get is a 4. Okay. But this can also make your typing more accurate in terms of typing different languages with different accented characters or different currency symbols or whatever it may be. Okay. When you are using an app like Notes, and you want to select some text up here on the screen, or move the insertion point around, right? On the iPhone, if you want to move the insertion point to another part of the text, you just tap where you want the insertion point to go. You know, unlike a mouse-driven interface where you click the mouse, move the pointer to where you want the insertion point to go, and then click the mouse to move it there, you just tap where you want it to go. So if I tap in front of the word lion, it moves the insertion point there. If I tap after the word banana, it moves the insertion point there. What you can't do is you cannot tap in the middle of the word to put the insertion point in the middle of the word. So if I try to tap right in the middle of the word banana, the insertion point just won't go. It'll go at the beginning of the word or the end of the word. It won't go in the middle. So to get it in the middle, you have to drag it there. Just touch and hold the insertion point. And above my finger, there's a little magnifier that shows up. Because my finger is covering the word banana right now, I can kind of take a look at this, drop it in, and tap a D. Right? You can also use the keyboard area like a trackpad by simply pressing and holding the space bar. The keys go away, and as I move my finger around on this area where the keyboard was, that area is acting like a trackpad you'd have on a laptop or the magic trackpad attached to your Mac. So I can now move my finger around in the area down below where the keyboard would normally be, and I'm not blocking the text. So I can see exactly where I'm going to put this insertion point right here and then type. Okay. Okay. Any questions so far?
None.
Okay. I trust most of you may already know this. I'm always surprised though when somebody learns something new about this.
Captivating.
Yeah, sometimes. So here's another piece of this. There's another thing that's built into this keyboard called, by various things, slide to type. Apple calls it quick path. What you do is, instead of tapping the keys and risk missing one from time to time, you just slide your finger around on the keyboard to pick the letters you want without lifting your finger off the keyboard till you reach the end of the word. So for example, if I want to type the word ghost, I'll put my finger on the G key, G-H, move it to the O, move it to the S, move it to the T, and lift my finger up to finish spelling the word. So I'm going to move my finger around on the keyboard down here, and you're going to see like a little vapor trail following me around, right? This is my finger moving on the keyboard, up and down, over and under, around and through. And as I'm moving it on the keyboard in this random pattern, you'll notice that the words above the keyboard are changing. This is the keyboard trying to figure out exactly what it is I'm typing. And if I stop right here and lift my finger off the screen, I'm going to get the word sacrosanct, right? So swipe typing, or quick path, is amazingly accurate. It's also much faster than tap typing. For example, if I want to spell the word banana, it's B-A-N-A-N-A, right? Much faster than tapping it out. In fact, because of the predictive nature of the keyboard, you don't even have to get all the way to the letter you want. Sometimes it's just like get close to it. Kind of like this example we used with the word moon, where after typing the M, the O, and the O, if I tapped anywhere near the N, I was going to get an N. Same sort of thing is happening here. I can tap up or swipe type the word pleasure, and you can kind of watch the vapor trail on the screen. I'm going to start at the P, I'm going to go to the L, I'm going to get close to the E, close to the A, S, close to the U, R, E, and I almost got the word pleasure. Okay, so you don't have to be quite so precise, right? You can do G-I-R-A-F-F-E and get giraffe, or you can do gorilla, G-O-R-I-L-L-A, and you may not even reach the keys you're looking for, but the fact that you're in the neighborhood, coupled with the iPhone's predictive nature of the keyboard, can really speed up your typing and give you some incredible results. So we all have these days when our fingers are just a little bit fatter than usual. Maybe you are riding in the back, as I have many times, of a park and fly van in San Francisco, going to the airport from the lot. And you know, they get those vans and they never change the shocks on them. And you're bouncing up and down with every pothole, and you're trying to type something on your phone and nothing is coming out right. Sometimes swipe typing will work better because you just keep your finger on the screen the entire time, and the iPhone can frequently guess things better than you can type. So if you're ever interested in this, try giving slide to type or swipe typing, or quick path is what Apple calls it, a chance to see how it works. Here's another thing about the keyboard. My keyboard, down in the lower left-hand corner, I've got this emoji button. This is, if you tap it, it switches you over to an emoji keyboard. I'm sure most of you know that. Tap the ABC, you'll go back to the emoji. If you don't have an emoji button down here, you might have a globe button. That comes if you install an extra keyboard or two. I'll show you about that in a second. But if you touch and hold this emoji key, you get a menu instead of the emoji keyboard. And from here, you can switch keyboards, but you can also tap one of these icons along this bottom row. So this one on the left, I'm holding my phone in my left hand. If I tap this button on the left, the keyboard scrunches over to the left side of the screen. And this allows me to use one hand to type. You know, iPhones have gotten a lot wider and a lot taller since the original ones were introduced. And holding the phone in one hand and trying to reach things on the screen, say with your thumb, can be kind of difficult. But if you scrunch the keyboard over to one side, my thumb can now reach that P key, and I can tap that character. So there are a lot of people who want to use a phone one-handed, but you can't reach the far side of the screen. Try using this one-handed keyboard. And you can pick either, scrunch the characters left if you're holding the phone in the left hand, or you can scrunch the characters to the right if you're holding the phone in your right hand. And to expand the keyboard back full again, you can just tap this little white arrow button that shows up, or you can touch and hold the menu and just pick this middle icon if you like. Okay. So that's another option. Let me go back to that menu for one more second. I'm going to touch and hold the emoji. And up above here at the top of this menu is keyboard settings. If you pick this, you'll be taken to the settings app, into general, into keyboards, and here are a whole bunch of things that the keyboard does for you behind the scenes, like checking spelling, like predictive, showing that bar across the top row of the keyboard. Here's how you turn slide to type on. Here's the period shortcut that allows you to double tap a space bar to insert a period followed by a space. And there's also dictation down here, which we're not going to really get much into here, I don't think today, but you can turn the one-handed keyboard on and off from up here. And you can also install alternate keyboards if you like for alternate languages. So for example, if I tap keyboards at the top of this screen, these are the two keyboards I have installed. If I can speak another language, I can barely speak English today, but if I could speak another language and I tap add a new keyboard, I can pick from a whole bunch of different languages and add those keyboards to mine and type in a different language. So for example, if I pick French from France, and then I go back to the Notes app, my emoji button is moved up next to the space bar, and it's been replaced by this globe button, which means I've got more than English and emoji installed. I've also got French. And you'll notice the keyboard layout is a little bit different. It's not the usual QWERTY layout in the upper left-hand corner. And when you start to type, the keyboard is going to be looking around for French words, right? Instead of English. So if you do have to ever type in another language, you might want to think about adding this additional keyboard that you need to your device, because you'll be able to take advantage of the dictionary that's built in that language. And I'm going to go back to English before I get in trouble. Any questions about the keyboard?
Yes, you have a very interesting question from Walt. Walt, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure.
Well,
Question is, question is, how do you, excuse me, how do you type a double letter when slide typing?
Yeah, I used to think you had to do something like this. You would do M-O and come off the O and go back to the O and then go to the N, get moon. But you don't really even have to do that. The dictionary kind of figures it out for you. So like if I do giraffe, G-I-R-A-F-F-E, I didn't have to go off the F key and come back to it. I didn't have to linger there. I actually, you could say I misspelled it and the phone fixed it, right? So I don't think you have to do anything special. Just go to the key and then go to the next letter. I guess we could try it with bookkeeper, right? B-O-O-K-E-E-P-E-R, right? I didn't do anything special there. I only went to the O key and the K key and the E key one time. I didn't have to like slide off and slide back or linger there for an extra second or two. The phone figured it out. So there's no magic to that. It just, like there is magic, I guess, there's nothing you have to do. The phone just sort of magically gets it done for you.
Okay. Betsy seems to be having some issues. Betsy, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? If not, I can ask it for you. So Betsy wants to know, does the quality of the keyboards vary by the model? She says she has an iPhone 12 Pro Max and is wondering about the 14 Pro. She says, my keyboard is not doing well with the swiping. Maybe it needs to be educated.
I think I kind of think that there's probably some work going on behind the scenes from a software standpoint every time the software gets revised, and maybe even between revisions. I know there's a lot of people that have had a lot of problems with autocorrect, right?
Oh, yes.
Where things are like working really well with autocorrect, and all of a sudden they don't work so well with autocorrect, and that's got to be software, right? I do think that, like, I've got a 14 Pro here, but if I had like a max size phone, MAX rather, speak check, if the phone is wider, then the keys can be a little bit bigger, which can make typing on it a little bit easier maybe. But as far as individual phone models, I don't think that necessarily the hardware that's built into the phones is going to impact how well the keyboard works. I think it's much more likely to be reliant on things like the size of the phone, meaning the size of the keys can be bigger, and the software behind the scenes. That's
Okay.
That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Okay. Ronald has a question, and Fred, you're after Ronald. Go ahead, Ronald.
Yeah, yes. I use Swipe, SWYPE, which Apple bought. And for a long time, Swipe was still better than the Apple modification. One of the things that I found was the personal dictionary had disappeared, which I did find quite handy for odd words that I used regularly. That was the main point.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Fred Pryor, please ask your question.
How does it handle the possessive and the contraction for its?
Usually pretty well, I think. So if I'm going to start a sentence and I type ITS and press the space bar, it's going to give me the contraction. Okay. It's now time to take its place. Oops. Okay. So that one worked out pretty well, right? I think you just have to like type it and see how it goes. My experience is when you start a sentence out with IT''s, you can usually start the sentence with ITS, press the space bar, and it will get the contraction piece of it correctly. We didn't really talk about dictation. You can turn on dictation. That's what this little microphone button down here in the lower right-hand corner is. And anywhere you can type, anywhere the keyboard appears, you can dictate instead. So on days when you're just, swipe typing is not working, tap typing is not working, and you got something you need to type and it's maybe too long, dictation is good. And dictation will also look at context as you dictate. And as the words show up on the screen, you might see words change, like it's with an apostrophe to it's without the apostrophe, based on the context of the sentence. So I think it's possible that the typing mechanism may do the same thing as you're typing. In other words, if I started to type this sentence, would it go back and fix a word beforehand? I don't think the keyboard does that directly when you're typing, but I know it does it when you dictate. So you can give that a try too, in case it's just too frustrating to type on the keyboard in a given circumstance. The dictation is actually pretty good with no training required. I remember when I got some Via Voice software from IBM for my Mac years and years ago, and it was like, you talk, it types, right? And it actually kind of did, but you had to read it like the first 3 chapters of Treasure Island. Just read it into your Mac so that it could figure out how you pronounce certain words, so that it would give you the right words when you pronounce them. There's no training required with dictation here. It's all just turn it on and start talking, and it does amazing things.
All right, thank you. Mary Condon, Roar, your question, even though you found the answer, is still valid. Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. I was trying to eliminate an extra keyboard that I had, a French keyboard, and I couldn't do it. And then I realized if I just hit the edit key, it allowed me to delete it.
Really? Here's another way you can do it. You can go into the keyboard settings, And when I tap keyboards, yes, you can tap this edit key up here and then you can delete it. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
You can reorder them if you want also. Okay. But you can also, even right from here, you can just swipe on it
Oh,
without even having to tap the edit key. That'll
thanks.
work too.
Thank you.
All right, wonderful. All right, Mike, all yours.
Okay. Ronald, your hand is up. Do you have a question?
His hand was up from previous.
Okay.
No, if I may, I just cannot
ahead.
find how to put the emoji on. I've got a new iPhone, and I have got the phone in my other hand. I cannot. I've recently found that not having several keyboards on board, as it were, the emoji don't appear. Is it a
Well, there
UK
should be
board?
an emoji button near the keyboard somewhere. Either if your phone is big enough, it'll be below the keyboard like mine is, or on some phones, the emoji button will be right next to the space bar.
I don't. Well, anyway, thank you. That was the point.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, Mike, all yours.
Okay. So I'm going to go on to page 2 of the handout, and I want to talk a little bit about widgets. This guy right up here in the corner of my screen, this great big thing compared to the size of those normal app sizes, that's a widget. Many of you are probably familiar with the Today view. The Today view is kind of lurking off to the left of your very first home screen. So this is my first home screen. If I swipe one more time to the right, the Today view comes into view. And the Today view is made up of nothing but widgets. So widgets are like a little peek into an app. App developers create widgets if they want. And when you download an app, the widgets come along for the ride. And you have the ability to put these widgets into the Today view simply by going all the way down to the bottom and tapping this edit button. And then you can rearrange these widgets. You can remove them by tapping the minus button. And you can add a widget by tapping the plus button in the upper left-hand corner. When you do that, this widget gallery appears with some suggestions. And you can go down here to the bottom and see a whole list of apps that you have on your phone that have widgets available to them that you can pick from as well. But this area called the Today view kind of, as I mentioned, lurks kind of off to the left of the first home screen. A couple of years ago, Apple added the ability to put widgets right on the home screen if you want, in conjunction with your app icons. So how do you do this if you want to add a widget to a home screen? You touch and hold anywhere on the home screen. A nice open space is a good place to touch and hold, like to the left or right of the search button here. Just touch and hold, and the phone goes into jiggle mode, right? Very technical term. Now, when you do that, you can move app icons around and make folders and put them on different screens and all the rest of that. But you can also tap the plus button in the upper left-hand corner to open up that same widget gallery that the Today view uses. And now I can add a widget to this home screen by just tapping it. So this is an example of a stocks widget. There's several different styles of widgets you can use that are based on the Stocks app on your phone. This one picks out one symbol and tracks it during the course of the day. If I swipe this way, I can get a larger widget that has 6 different stocks in it, in case I want to track more than one. Or I can pick a medium-sized one that tracks 3, or a small-sized one that tracks 3. So if I want to add this widget to my lock screen, and save myself a trip to the Stocks app every time I want to check on stocks, I can just tap the Add Widget button at the bottom of the screen, and that puts the widget on the home screen. And I can move it around just like an app icon. That's the same kind of limitations that an app icon would have, okay? And I can add another widget. Let's suppose I want to get a widget from Apple TV Plus. Add that in there. Want to get some other widget, maybe I'll go get a weather widget down here at the bottom. Here's the weather where I am. I'll add that one in. So these widgets can take up a lot of space, right? They're very handy because you can glance at them, get some glanceable information without having to open an app or find the app on some home screen somewhere. And you can, if you want to get more information from this particular widget, like the weather widget, you just give it a tap and it will go open the weather app and give you all the detail you want, right? So it's glanceable information, and it's like almost like a great big button you can tap to go into that app and see more detail. But sometimes these widgets take up a lot of space. They take up way more space than an app icon. So what can you do about that? Well, you can go back into jiggle mode like this. And if the widget sizes are the same, and on the iPhone, remember there's 3 sizes. They're like a small, which takes up about the space that 4 app icons would take up. There's a medium one, which takes up 8 spaces. And there's a large one, which takes up 16, or roughly half the screen. So as long as these widgets are all the same size, you can drag one on top of the other and make a stack like this. And these 3 dots over here on the right are telling me I've got 3 widgets in a stack. If I tap the done button to stop the jiggle mode, if I want to switch from stocks to something else, I can just swipe up or down on the widget. Now I'm looking at Apple TV. Now I'm looking at weather. Now I'm back to stocks. So back on my very first home screen, this little widget up here, this little photos widget, which goes into your photo library and grabs a photo and puts it up there for you. This is actually a stack, which has stocks, weather, battery life of my devices, upcoming calendar events, and photos. And I can switch between these as I see fit. But there's one more thing about stacks that's kind of cool. If you touch and hold the screen to go into jiggle mode again, and then you tap the stack, or touch and hold the stack. Whoops, wait a minute. Let me try that again. If you touch and hold the stack without going into jiggle mode, let me start from the beginning. We're not in jiggle mode. I'm going to touch and hold the stack. A menu pops up, and there's a button here to edit the stack. And when I tap this, I can see kind of a view of all the widgets that are in this stack. If I want to take any of them out, I can hit this minus button in the corner, and that will remove the widget, but it leaves the app alone. It does not delete the stocks app. It just gets the widget out of there. But you'll notice down here at the bottom, there's a button called Smart Rotate. And what this does is the phone will automatically rotate the widgets to bring to the top something that the phone thinks you might be interested in. So for example, if my widget was set to show me the weather, and I had some event in the calendar that was coming up at 9:15, roughly 15 minutes before that appointment happens, the calendar widget will rotate to the top and show me the upcoming event, right? Or if I had the photo widget open here, and all of a sudden there was a weather alert that was coming into the weather app, like it's going to start raining in 10 minutes, the weather widget would rotate to the top and give me that information automatically. So that's what this stack feature, in conjunction with the Smart Rotate option down here at the bottom, can be a pretty powerful thing if you're interested in something like that. Any questions about widgets on the home screen?
Donna Warnock, did you get your question answered?
No, I
Donna?
did. Yes, it takes a minute to get to mute.
Okay, good.
What if you can't find, you don't know where the widget is that you want to move to the home screen or stack?
Well, one thing you can do when you go into jiggle mode,
Yeah,
and you tap the plus button in the upper left-hand corner.
where I don't see it.
So on my screen, if you go into jiggle mode
Yes.
Should be on a home screen, there should be a plus button in the upper left-hand corner.
I don't see it on your screen.
You don't?
Oh, you know what? Somebody's enabled closed captioning.
Oh, okay,
There we go. There it is.
okay. So when you
Okay.
tap that, when you tap that plus button, this opens the widget gallery.
Oh,
And the,
okay.
and the gallery is going to suggest some widgets to me at the top up here. That's what all these are.
Yeah.
But if you keep scrolling, you'll get a list of every app on your phone that has widgets associated with it alphabetically.
Great.
Or you can just search, use the search field up here to search for a particular app that you think might have a widget associated with it. So if I, for example, go in here and I type deliveries, oops, if I could type, that'd be good, right? DEL, okay. Here's the deliveries app, which is something you can get to kind of track deliveries in and out of your house. When I tap this, I'll see the types of widgets that I can get from the deliveries app. There's basically a small and a medium.
Oh, that's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
All right. All right. Glad we could help out, Donna. All right, Ward, you're next, and Gail, you're after Ward. Ward Clark.
Yes, in the early days, on the Today screen, there would always be a search at the top. And now search is hidden, and I seem to be able to get it by swiping down, but, oh, okay. Yep.
That's it.
But it doesn't always show up. Am I not swiping from the right place?
You got to swipe like right from the middle of the screen. If you swipe from the top, something weird might happen. Like I put my finger generally, see where that little red laser light is bouncing around? You swipe from the middle of the screen down, you'll get the search function.
Perfect. Thank you.
Now, let me mention something about the search function, okay? Oops. In iOS 16, Apple replaced the little button at the bottom of the home screen that had dots in it. It would tell you how many home screens you had. It got replaced by this search button. So from the home screen, you can just tap the search button to get there, right? But it's also true that from any home screen, you can pull down from the middle of the home screen. Just like you can pull down from the middle of the Today view to get to the search field, you can also pull down from the middle of any home screen like this to get the search field as well. This still works. This was how you used to have to access search. You either went to the Today view or you could pull down from the middle of any home screen. Now the search button is much more prominent. It's right down here. In fact, when you swipe through the home screens, the search button will be briefly replaced by the dots, right? And then it reverts back to the search button. And so, you know, you never really see, like if you had 12 home screens, you used to see like 12 dots at the bottom of the screen. Now, even with this change to put the search button in, when you swipe, you only see 4 dots at a time. But you can tell by the size of the dots if there are more dots available in that direction. So in this little 4-dot thing at the bottom of my screen, the dot on the far left is smaller, which means there is more to be seen over there, right? When the dot size matters, right? The small dot means I can keep swiping until I see the biggest dot on the far left. That indicates to me that you're at the beginning, right? So if the dot is small, you can keep swiping until the dots get big to give you some sort of a guide as to how many home screens you have. Okay.
Can you also show where that setting is to turn that feature off, just in case someone has that feature turned off and don't know it?
The search button at the bottom of the screen?
Yes.
I don't think you can turn that off.
You absolutely can turn it off. Yes.
Can?
Yes.
Where?
Yes, it's in, let me see where it is, because I turned it off. I found it more than annoying.
Oh, here it is. Okay, so it's
yeah.
Settings, home screen. Is it search, show on home screen?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, how about that? You learn something every day.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so someone asked a question, Jerry asked a question. So Jerry, check and see if you have that option, because that's maybe why you're just seeing the dots. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gail, you're next.
Yeah, I must have been asleep, but how do you make a stack?
Of widgets,
Yes.
you go to wherever your widgets are located, right? You can go into jiggle mode. I'm gonna just put another widget on the screen. Put United on here, right? So you're in jiggle mode, right? As long as the widgets are the same size, you just drag one widget on top of another like that.
Then how do you make a widget the right size?
Well,
For
you
example,
well
I have
if you
maps
yeah,
that goes clear across. I want it just to be a square.
yeah, you got to delete that widget and go back and add the smaller size one. You can't resize it on the
All
screen.
right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Gail. James Corsica, can you please ask your question?
Hi, I have a set of JBL Bluetooth headphones, and I like the battery app because it shows the status of the headphone battery, but it shows up on the iPad battery widget, but not on my iPhone battery widget. Do you have any explanation for that?
Nope.
Okay, I kind of thought so.
That seems weird. It would just
Yes,
seems to me like the only thing I can think of is the iPad widgets are bigger in some cases than the iPhone widgets because the iPad screen is bigger. So it could be that you have to use like one of the really big, large iPad widgets to see the battery for the headphones to begin with. And if that size widget isn't available on the phone, maybe that's what's preventing it from happening. Just a
Well,
guess.
there's still four I don't know, green, I think they're green, four
Right.
green circles, of which two of them are empty. So I thought maybe it was a quirk of the brand or favoritism for the Apple headphones, something like that.
Could be. I don't, the only things that I ever see in here are Apple products. Because I don't have any of those other third-party products that might show up. Like I'll see AirPods up here from time to time. But third-party headphones, I kind of wouldn't expect to see them. So the fact that they do show up somewhere is a kind of a bonus, I think. But,
okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right, Mike, all yours.
Okay. I want to talk next about the app library. As you know, if you're on your very first home screen and you swipe from left to right, you'll be in the Today view. But if you go all the way to your last home screen and you swipe one more time from right to left, you're in the app library. This is a feature that got added to the phone and the iPad actually a couple of years ago. And if you go to the app library, there's really nothing for you to do here other than make use of it. All of these little categories that you see here are generated by the categories that every app has when it comes down from the App Store. So for example, the United Airlines app, it has a label associated with it called Travel, as does the Maps app and some of these other things. And so the app library automatically organizes these apps into categories based upon their category from the App Store. So you can't really come back here and create your own, right? The app library is doing all of this itself. Now, when you look at the app library, there's some Siri suggestions up here. There's some recently added apps up here. Here's productivity and finance. If you see any large or normal size icon, like this one for Safari, you can tap that and it will open the app. If you see a cluster of 4 little icons in the lower right-hand corner of a category, that means there are more apps in this category than can be displayed in the little palette. That means there's more than 4, basically. So to see the rest of the utilities apps, you tap in the lower right-hand corner where these 4 icons reside, and you'll see all the apps on your phone that fall in the utilities category. And you can tap any one of these to open it directly. Now, there's a search field up here. If you tap in it, you'll get an alphabetical list of every app on your phone. You can scroll through it, tap the one you want, or you can search up here. Like if I search for United, there's United Airlines. I can tap this to open it. If I want to take this icon and I want to put it on a home screen, I can touch and hold it and just drag it out and drop it wherever I want it to go. So here's the thing about the app library. When the app library was added to the phone, you got a new option in the Settings app. I believe it's under App Store or maybe home screen. Yeah. When you download an app from the App Store now, you have the choice of putting it only in the app library, or not only putting it in the app library, but also putting it on a home screen. In the old days, whenever you downloaded an app from the App Store, it went on a home screen somewhere. That's where it went. You couldn't download an app and not have it go to the home screen. So as a result, after several years of people, downloading gazillions of apps, you get gazillions of apps on the home screen, multiple home screens, can't find anything, right? So the app library was created for all the apps to go into, and then you can choose to also have the app added to the home screen if you like. Or you can choose to just put apps in the app library and not have them appear on the home screen. So for example, if I go into jiggle mode here, and there's a Mastodon app down here in the lower right-hand corner. If I tap the minus button on top of it, it used to be you got this choice to delete the app. And if you delete the app, it removes the data. But now you also have a choice to just remove it from the home screen. So if I choose delete the app, deleting it removes it from the home screen and the app library. If I choose remove from the home screen, the icon is removed from the home screen, but it stays in the app library. Okay. The easiest way to think about this, and this is great because I'm talking to a bunch of Mac users, right? Is the parallel here is the applications folder on your Mac, where all of your apps live, and the dock at the bottom of the screen, where you can put apps, drag apps from the applications folder to the dock to be able to launch those apps quickly. So if you think about the dock on the Mac as being like a home screen on the iPhone, that's the parallel, okay? And all of those apps in the dock on the Mac are not the apps themselves, right? They are aliases. They're little tiny files that just point to where the real file lives. So on the Mac, when you click the Mail app down in the dock, you're telling the Mac, go find the Mail app and open it. In this case, it's in the applications folder. Same idea here. These apps on the home screens as being aliases or pointers to the actual app in the app library, so that when you tap an App Store icon on a home screen, it runs over to the app library and opens it for you. Okay. Now, what's so hot about this, right? Well, you can go into the app library. Here's the Safari icon right here. I can touch and hold this and drag it out and put an icon right here. So I can put this Safari icon on every home page if I want to do that. I can create a home page that contains, let's say, a whole bunch of travel-related apps, weather, United, Safari, whatever it may be, right? Kayak. You can create a home page that contains just apps for a particular topic, and those apps can appear on multiple home pages, right? I can keep Safari down here in the dock, and I can put an app icon for it on this page if I want to, because it's just an alias. It's pointing to the original file in the app library. Okay. Here's one more thing about going into jiggle mode here. If you tap this little button down here that has the white dots on it when you're in jiggle mode, it's this, or something like it. I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 home screens, but only 4 of them right now are visible, just the ones with the check mark underneath it. I used to be just like you, I'm sure. I used to try to organize apps on home screens and keep things organized and put the travel app here, there, and put that there. And after about 2 home screens, nobody knows where anything is on their phone. You use the search field to find it if you have to. But none of these other home screens are actually even visible, right? If I want to make them visible, I can tap the check mark underneath. And then when I tap the done button in the corner, now all of a sudden I've got more home screens, right? If I want to do that. So go into jiggle mode, tap the little button down here with the dots on it, and you can turn home screens on or off. You can rearrange home screens if you want. You can just like touch and hold and drag this one to another spot. And if you want to delete an entire home screen that's homes, you can just tap the minus button in the corner, and that will delete the home screen and the icons on it, but not the apps in the app library. Okay. Any questions about that?
Linda, did you find your battery widget?
Good,
it was just
good
here.
instructions, Victoria, but I can't find it.
So if you go into jiggle mode and you tap the plus button in the upper left-hand corner, the widget gallery will show up. And you can scroll up, there'll be an alphabetical list, and you can tap batteries. And then you'll see the options. And you can pick whichever size you want, and then tap add widget. And if you add it to a home screen that's full, it'll kick the icons out onto another page.
Great. I'll have to review the replay. Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you, Linda. Jean Roy, you have a either question or problem with your home screen. Can you unmute yourself and speak your comment?
Sure, I had all the screens displayed as was mentioned, and there wasn't any little minus. And I said, well, all of mine were selected. They have a little circle underneath with a check mark. I unchecked it, and then the minus showed up. So I have to decide not to display it before I can delete it. It looks like a two-step process.
That's exactly right. So this 4th home screen right here, it has no minus button in the corner because it's checked to be shown. So if I uncheck it, then I can delete it.
It's like a little safety thing there.
Something like that.
Could be. All right. Thank you. Linda Sandrich, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, I can try anyway. Mike, on my home screen, I have several widgets. Let me get back to my home screen. And then I have 2 other apps that don't jiggle when I go into jiggle mode. And I can't delete them. And I don't know, and they're full column wide. And I want to get smaller ones. But I don't know what to do with these. If I hit edit, they get a dark bar. They seem to be joined. They get a single dark bar around both of them. Oh, maybe customize. Okay. Just now when I did that, it says I can customize it.
This is a widget you're talking about?
No, apparently I don't think it's a widget, but you know what? I'm not going to take up the class time with this. I'll work on this myself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No problem. Thank you for your question. We appreciate it. Frank Salvatini, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Frank wants to know, can we create home screens that are alphabetical?
You mean arrange the apps on the home screen in alphabetical order by tapping a button and saying alphabetize these apps? I don't think you can do that.
No, you can't.
You can arrange them alphabetically by hand if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Everybody's got
Yeah.
different approaches to home screens. Some people put on home screens all the icons that are green, no matter what app they're. Some people will put apps on a home screen that are represented by just a letter, right? Like pushover is represented by a P. I've got some other ones in here. So the App Store is represented by an A, ChargePoint by a C. You can arrange the apps that way if you want to. You can spell out words with your apps if you like. You can have kind of a glorified Wordle screen, I guess, only 4 characters across. But there isn't a way to say, here's a bunch of apps on a home screen, tap a button and alphabetize them for you. That's not a feature as far as I can tell.
Great. Ward Clark, you have a question. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, I like to keep my first 2 home screens devoted to the apps that I use all the time. And I'll go I'll discover an app and I'll think, gee, I'd like to have this on my phone. And when I go to the App Store, it says open. And I go, open? I must have already installed it, but where is it? I can't. And searching through all of the extra home screens is very tedious. Is there some trick to find out where I've put it?
Well, the only thing I can tell you is if you use the search field to open up an app, right? Like if I type weather in here, it's going to show me all the apps related to weather. What you might find sometimes is this. I'm going to type in Ecobee, say thermostat thing. If only one app shows up as a result of your search, if it's in a folder, the folder name will show up on the right. Okay. But if the app is just loose somewhere on your screens, like if I search for Freeform, for example, it'll find the app, but there's no folder listed because it's not in a folder. So it's not going to tell you which homepage it's on. It's not going to tell you where it is, but it'll let you open it just by tapping it after you do the search field. The only guidance you'll ever get when you search for an app using the search field is if it happens to be in a folder somewhere. It'll tell you the folder name, but it won't tell you where the folder is. You have to try to go find it somewhere. So I'm kind of like you. I'm actually exactly like you. The apps that I use most often I keep in the dock down at the bottom, because the dock icons never change when you switch home screens. They're always there. And so muscle memory and brain memory says these are the 4 apps I use. And then the apps I use typically all the time I put on the first home screen. And then I know where most of the things are on the second one. And after that, I have no idea where anything is. And so I just use the search field to open the app. You can ask Siri to open the app for you. You can say, hey, lady, open classical, and it will do that. That's another way to get to apps without having to know where they are.
Okay. All right. We have a question from someone named iPad 2, which is a no-no. iPad 2, unmute yourself. Tell me who you are.
Before we do that, I raised my hand and I don't know if it's visible.
No, it's not.
As a host, I really can't do, but I have a question or a comment regarding the previous question, how to put the apps in alphabetical order. I have done that previously, and there is a setting that allows you to reset your home screen layout. What it does, it will list all apps that come with the iPhone in the order I think that Apple has organized them. But all additional apps that you have downloaded afterwards, they will appear in alphabetical order. However, if you do that, unfortunately, if you have created folders for apps, it will dissolve these folders. So it will destroy the previous folders that you might have created. But other than that, there really is, if you go all the way down to settings, let me see, you go to general, and then all the way down to transfer or reset iPhone, and say, take a reset. You can reset home screen layout. That That will put your apps in alphabetical order with the restrictions I just mentioned.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Okay.
I'm not touching.
Absolutely. All right. So is that you, Mitch? Are you iPad too? Mitch, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, I don't know why my machine keeps on putting my name in as iPad 2. I changed it to Mitch just a minute ago.
Go ahead, Mitch.
Back on the previous question about the lost app, the thing I do is I just go to the last page, to the app library. I search for the app I want, and then I touch on it and I say add it to the home screen. And it'll be on your machine twice, but it's somewhere you don't know, but it's also going to be somewhere where you know it is.
Right.
And only one more comment on that. If you decide, well, oh, I found where it is, I'm going to delete that copy of it. If you delete it, it deletes both of them. I found that out the hard way.
Ooh, really?
Yes.
So yeah, so if I'm back here in the app library and if I like touch and hold, say the stocks app icon here, a little menu pops. Oh, that's search. Wait a minute.
No, app library at the top. Search.
Here? Oh, and
Yeah.
now touch and hold.
Yeah.
Now there's
add to the home screen.
Home screen, right? You can do that, or you can just touch and hold and drag it right out. Either way.
Yes.
Get it to the home screen. But the part about deleting one of the aliases, deleting all of them, is kind of interesting. Like here's the Safari one. So are you saying if I touch and hold and I not remove the app? Well, maybe it's remove the app.
Yeah,
If
remove the app.
And I say remove from the home screen, it's going to delete Safari in the dock too? It didn't for me that time, but
I know I had it on. I know I had two of them on my home screen. I didn't have it in the dock. I had it.
Okay.
They were just on the home screen, and I don't know which one it was, weather or something. I just thought, oh, I'm going to get rid of one of these. I don't need both of them here, and so I deleted it. I deleted the app.
Is that what you, instead of removed it from the home screen, you deleted the app?
I deleted the app, and it deleted both of them.
Yeah, if you delete,
Yeah. Yes. Right.
If you delete the app from the app library, then there's no alias to show anywhere.
Right.
Right. Right. Yep. Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mitch. Carol, Mitch, did you have another question?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it. Carol, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Is that me?
That's you.
Okay. I had DuckDuckGo and it was too big, and they said you had to delete it and get it back on. So I jiggled it and I pressed the minus and it left, but I don't know how to get it back on small.
To get the app back on your phone?
To get it back in the same size as everything else, because I deleted it because it was too big.
So is this a widget that you deleted, or the app itself?
It was DuckDuckGo. I don't know.
Okay. Well, if it was the app, just go back to the app store.
It was on the home screen.
Okay. If it was an app, you can just go back to the app store and re-download it. If it was a widget, then you can just go into jiggle mode, tap the plus button, and you can look and see if there's a I don't have the DuckDuckGo app on my phone, though I use the search engine. So because I don't have the app, I don't have access to any of the widgets, but you can remove a widget from the screen and then go back in and add it again if you want to. Like, for example, if you put up deliveries,
will it come back the small size, or will it come back the same size I had before?
It'll be your choice, right? So like the deliveries app has a small size and a large and a medium size. And so if you add the medium size and then you decide, I want the small size instead, you got to go back into jiggle mode. You delete this one, right?
Right, that's what I did.
Go back to the plus sign, go back in the widget gallery, go find the app again, and instead install the small size.
I see. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for your question, Carol.
Thank
you. Mike, all yours.
Okay, let me touch on a couple things in messages. This is something else that's kind of new in iOS 16. I'm going to go to the settings app real quick. And from this very first settings screen where your name is at the top, I'm just going to scroll up till I find messages. And there's another new setting in here in iOS 16 called filter unknown senders. And I think this is usually off by default. But if you turn this switch on, you can get access to different views of the conversations in the Messages app. But you won't see them unless you turn this switch on. Okay, filter unknown senders. So now if I go back to the Messages app, and I'm looking at my list of conversations here. Hey, here's one from Dan, right? In the upper left-hand corner of the Messages conversations page, there's now a button that says filters. And when you tap this, you can now look at your messages in different views. So for example, if you want to look at all of your messages together, you tap all messages and that's what you'll see. If you only want to see messages from people that you know, in other words, people that are in your contacts app, you can see just the people you know. If you want to filter the list so you only see the messages from people you don't know, these typically come in with phone numbers attached to them, right? A lot of these are junk texts. You can view just the list of unknown senders. You can also view just the list of unread messages. And you can get access to messages that are deleted from here. So it used to be that in the Messages app, when you deleted a conversation, it was gone. There wasn't a way to get it back. But in iOS 16, if you turn on that filters switch in the Settings app, you'll see this list of filters, and one of them is recently deleted. So what's happening now is messages that you delete don't get really deleted right away. They go into this recently deleted area, and they'll stay there for about a month. There's like a little clock counting down over here on the right. It's just like putting a photo in recently deleted in the Photos app. It will stay there for about a month and then it will self-delete. And it's the same thing here. So if you wanted to delete something right away, you could select a conversation and then tap the delete button in the corner and away they go, right? Or you could, tap the delete button down here and this will delete everything in the list. Or if it's a message you want to get back, you can select the conversation and tap the recover button in the corner, and that will move it back into your list of messages again, right down here. So you only get access to these additional filters that are available in the Messages app, including the ability to recall messages that you've deleted, by turning on that switch in the Settings app to filter unknown senders. Okay, that's a really nice addition to the Messages app in iOS 16. And I just want to show one more thing in the Messages app as long as we're here. You are all probably familiar with the idea of sending a message, right? So here's my message from Dan. Here's the link to our meeting. That's great. I can say thanks. And if I tap this blue send button, it sends the message off, right? But if I touch and hold that blue send button, I get something like this. Has anybody seen this and didn't know what it was? Didn't know where this came from? Oh my God, what's going on here? This is how you can send a message with an effect. So for example, I can send either a bubble effect or a screen effect. And tapping these little bullets off to the right will give me a little animation about how these messages are delivered. So it's a way to send a little more emotion with a plain looking text message. If I'm interested in a screen effect, I can tap the screen button. And there are a number of effects here. You can see these little dots at the bottom of the screen, means there's more screens to see by swiping. This is the bubble effect or the echo effect. Here's the spotlight effect. Here's the balloons effect. So if I want to send this message with an effect attached to it, I can pick the effect I want. And then when I tap the blue send button over here on the right, this is what happens. And I see that on my phone, and Dan sees that on his, in his case, right? So if you ever get into a situation where you type something in here, and instead of tapping the send button, you touch and hold that button a little too long, don't panic, right? You can amaze your grandchildren by sending a message with an effect, and they'll wonder how did you know how to do that? Or if you don't want to send an effect at all, you can tap the little X over here to the next to the bubble to get out of the effect screen and just send the message normally. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. It's time to end our presentation. I want to thank you for another excellent presentation. Everyone, can you please unmute yourself and thank Mike?
Thank you very much, Mike.
Great.
Thank
you.
Very well done.
Mike, thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Thanks, Mike.
Definitely. Thank you.
Mike.
Very good.
Thanks.
Very good.
Thanks.
All right. Now, and I want
Lots
to say
of- Yeah, go ahead, Sheeta.
before everyone leaves again, I want to say, if you are a professional photographer or somewhere in that expert, I want you to contact me or send me your email. And I want to talk to you about doing a meeting, all photography. All right, go ahead, Dan.
We'll wrap it up right here. Thanks again, Mike. That was great. Lots of great tips in there. And this will be on YouTube in the next day or so. So thanks again, Mike. And we'll see everyone next week. I'm going to be talking about accessibility, I believe, next week. So little options on, how we can make our phone a little easier for us to use in some cases. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next week.